There's a ferocious thunderstorm outside, so if you hear any loud roaring, that's what's going on. August is typically a time of renewal. It's the last real month of summer, and it is chock full of activities. While I was brainstorming ideas, I started with sage green and then I added in a few more harvesty colors. Later this month, I'm moving across the country for college, and my new home state has plenty of rolling hills, and so I wanted to capture the feeling of long summer nights that just stretch on and on. So I decided to frame the picturesque scene that I'm envisioning in my mind and then also add a title up top, almost as though this month was a work of art that I've captured to treasure in my bullet journal. In just a few short weeks, I'm going to completely pack up all of my worldly possessions and head out on a week-long road trip, and then as soon as I arrive, just a day or two after that, I'll start class. This month's setup was remarkably quick and effortless to set up, which is an excellent reprieve after last month's sort of galactic battle to get anything that I was content to look at for a month. In comparison, this setup took less than 7 minutes from sketch to finished product. In the right-hand corner, you can see the thumbnail that I had sort of sketched out for what I envisioned the setup to look like. It's just 3 hills that have various lines through them to look like rows of crops. I'm not sure specifically what crops I had in mind, but your average wheat crops. Let's go with that. I spent about 1.5 minutes tops on the undersketch for this. You do not need any sort of special artistic ability or even a passion for art to be able to complete this setup, I promise. Too often I see other bullet journalists get frustrated with how intricate and gorgeous other bullet journals are, and I think it's really important to remember that bullet journaling is sort of an intersection between creativity and functionality, and if you veer too far in either direction, you might be better suited by a different tool to either have a creative output or to be more effective and productive. But for me, bullet journaling is right there in the middle, and so I'm going to stick with it for at least a little longer. I have experimented with Notion, but I found that it's just too restrictive for what my weekly and monthly day-to-day looks like. Every single week is a little bit different for me, and sometimes I don't need a very in-depth one, but sometimes I do need a very detailed day-to-day list of my tasks, and having that automated isn't something that I personally would find useful. Whereas with bullet journaling, if I have a very task-heavy day versus a very open-ended very already scheduled out day, or either anywhere in those extremes, bullet journaling is much more easy for me personally to adapt to. Switching back to what's happening on screen, I've finished coloring in these lovely rolling farm hills, and now I'm adding in the clouds. And right here I was sort of torn between going for midday or sort of dusk, and ultimately I decided to add in those darker coloring just to give those undertones of maybe the sun has just slipped beyond those hills, the moon has come out, and again those long summer nights are just stretching on and on. As I was writing the title of August, I realized just how rusty I am when it comes to my hand lettering and calligraphy practice. I am rusty. It took me much longer than it usually would have to get something that I was happy with, even though I just did it without any extra stress. I just was like, wow, this is not something that I've been working on. However, I am very pleased with the end result, and I think I might implement some of the elements of this design into future spreads, especially as a busy college student. Instead of outlining the frame with a solid color, I opted to use the color that was what was going on inside of the picture. So the lighter colors and the darker colors, and I think overall this was a lot less bold and striking than it would have been if I had used just a solid black or even a lighter color. So if you want more contrast, I would say opt for a darker one, but in this one I just wanted something calm and simple that wasn't too hard on my eyes. And with that small touch, the cover page is complete and it is time to begin the calendar. So my bullet journal calendars, the calendars and I have had a bit of an ongoing battle, and this has lasted for years now, where I am going for a very minimalistic, simple calendar, but somehow I just don't ever quite get it as simple as I would like. I've looked at other people's, I haven't ever attempted to directly copy, but I think I might need to nail down exactly what I'm going for, because mine always seem to be a little bit too small or too big, and I never end up actually using them. So it's sort of just a wasted space where I could have just written it very small if all I end up using it for is a reference of which day of the week is which. I think for now the compromise that I've hammered out is to have about half of the page be calendar and then the second half be tasks and events that I write below instead of on the squares. I find that I get a little bit more mileage for my paper that way. When it came time to add color to the calendar, I decided to limit myself to a slightly smaller palette, so I just used 3 colors that I felt complemented well enough, not too bright or too striking. And right here you're going to see the color palette that inspired my color palette. Accidentally, after I picked out the colors, I realized, oh hey, this has been a color palette that's been on my mind for a while. It's just these book tabs. I finally broke down and bought some. I haven't ever used them, but I think I'm going to attempt to do it with all of the readings that I'll have in college. I've also realized that this is the color palette that I've been thinking about doing with my dorm. I was torn between blue and yellow and this sort of warmer, more autumn palette, and I think I've decided to go with this one, especially after seeing it in action with my cover page. I'm attempting to be very frugal with what I bring to my dorm. There's really no need for me to cart all of my possessions across the country, nor do I need or want to buy more things. I'm actually really looking forward to sort of simplifying. I would never call myself a minimalist, but I think I have a minimalist mindset, but maximalist tastes. I found this to be true also for my wardrobe, which is getting a little bit off topic, but the more simplified and sort of capsule-y my wardrobe is, the more creative I'm able to be with my outfits. And so finding that striking balance where I'm not limited, but I'm also not overwhelmed is something I'm really looking forward to. I couldn't resist adding a few strips of washi tape for an extra pop of color, and then also a chance to use this lovely script washi tape, which if you look up close, it's sort of this lovely cursive. I was actually reading a little bit of it, and it's something 1800s. At this point, the page was feeling just a little bare and unfinished, and so I also decided to go back and add an outline, but a multicolored outline keeping with the cover page, and I think it finished it off just right. Very, very pleased with the cover page. Something new that I've been trying for my weeklies is to just set up the structure, but not put in the actual days until I need them. So while it makes it very boring to look at, and you can't even see it on screen, sorry about that, but it has been working very well for me, and I'm going to flash a couple of examples of weekly layouts that have worked for me recently. They're not exactly as gorgeous as my old ones, but they are more functional, and so I'm willing to make that trade-off. That concludes our August setup, my friends, and I will see you very soon. Until next time, bye!